Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome to Virtual University. I'm your course instructor for training and development, and this is the 40th session that we are meeting for today. Today we are going to talk about a new topic. This topic encompasses a number of diverse issues in training and development. It does not pertain to any particular concept of either training or development. We are going to discuss special issues in training and development. So, the first issue that we are going to discuss today is the possibility of legal actions in training and developmental activities. जब हम ट्रेनिंग्स करवाते हैं तो उसमें बहुत सारी ऐसी सिचुएशंस पैदा हो सकती हैं जिसमें ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से कुछ ऐसी मिस्टेक हो जाए, कुछ ऐसी अनइंटेंशनल मिस्टेक हो जाए जिसकी वजह से एम्प्लॉय उनके अगेंस्ट लीगल एक्शन करे, उनके अगेंस्ट केस कर दे, उनके अगेंस्ट कोर्ट में चला जाए. सो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को इस बात का ख्याल रखना जरूरी है कि वो ऐसी सिचुएशंस को जिस हद तक हो सकता है उन्हें अवॉइड करें. सो द सिचुएशंस व्हिच कैन डेवलप इनटू लीगल एक्शन, we are going to talk about those situations so that organizations, they can avoid such situations. The first situation is failing to provide required training or providing inadequate training. It is possible that the organizations, they do not adhere to the rules and regulations and specifications of the training which is required to be given. बहुत सी ऐसी जगहों पर रिक्वायरमेंट होती है कि आपने अपने एम्प्लॉयज को एक स्पेसिफिक तरह की ट्रेनिंग दिए बगैर उनको एम्प्लॉय नहीं करना, उनसे काम नहीं करवाना. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एयरलाइन स्टाफ के लिए सेफ्टी ट्रेनिंग बहुत जरूरी है और अगर वो सेफ्टी के रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस और उनके प्रोसेसेस की ट्रेनिंग अपने स्टाफ को नहीं देते, they are committing a legal crime. So if they do not provide adequate training, adequate safety training to their airline staff, it can be taken to the court. Then organizations are supposed to provide training opportunities to everyone. There should not be any discrimination in that. Specifically, in developed countries, there are legal acts that safeguard against any discrimination. For example, in America, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it safeguards against any sort of discrimination. Discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity, religion, color, background. All these are discrimination on the basis of some kind of difference. So in America, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 safeguards people against this discrimination. Then there is age discrimination in Employment Act in America, which safeguards people against any kind of discrimination on the basis of age in employment. यानी आप employment में किसी भी तरह की opportunity को discriminate नहीं कर सकते on the basis of age. You cannot discriminate on promotion, you cannot discriminate on salaries, you cannot discriminate on opportunities for training and development. So you are supposed to give the same kind of opportunities to people of more age as you would like to give to younger people. And then Americans with Disability Act, that safeguards people against any kind of discrimination who are disabled, who have some kind of disability. And all these acts, all these legal rules, they are enforced by Equal Employment Opportunity Commission in America. And these rules, they are employed with a lot of rigor, with a lot of emphasis. It's not just that the law is there and it is not enforced. For example, Coca-Cola paid $113 million in damages to 4 African Americans who filed a suit against discrimination in employment. So they paid $113 million to these plaintiffs, $3.5 million to adjust against salaries of African Americans in the next 10 years, and $36 million to initiate various diversity initiatives. So there is a lot of possibility that organizations can get stuck with some kind of legal action if they do not take into account these equal employment initiatives. Another situation which could lead to legal action is incurring employee injury during a training activity. There are many kinds of trainings in which there is a possibility of physical injury. There are physical requirements in that kind of a training session. So if there is some physical injury, some possibility of physical injury, then it should be communicated to the employee, consent should be taken, and proper provisions should be there to safeguard the organization as well as the employee from incurrence of such kind of an injury. Then another possibility is incurring breach of confidentiality or defamation. For example, अगर आप एक ट्रेनिंग सेशन करा रहे हैं जिसमें आपने परफॉर्मेंस अप्रेजल्स के बारे में ट्रेनिंग करवानी है और आप अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के कुछ लोगों की परफॉर्मेंस अप्रेजल्स एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे आप उनके सामने प्रेजेंट करते हैं, उनको एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे दिखाते हैं और उन परफॉर्मेंस अप्रेजल्स के अंदर लोगों के नाम भी मेंशन हैं, तो अगर आपने उनसे पहले कंसेंट नहीं लिया जिनकी परफॉर्मेंस अप्रेजल्स आप लोगों को दिखा रहे हैं, अगर आपने उन लोगों से कंसेंट नहीं लिया कि आपने उनकी परफॉर्मेंस की रिपोर्ट दूसरे लोगों से शेयर करनी है, तो इसमें कुछ पॉसिबिलिटी हो सकती है. वो कह सकते हैं कि हमारी कॉन्फिडेंशियल रिपोर्ट्स आपने लोगों को क्यों दिखाई, आपने लोगों के साथ क्यों शेयर की. उसके अलावा ट्रेनिंग में परफॉर्मेंस की जो रिपोर्ट्स हैं उनका क्या इस्तेमाल होगा लेटर ऑन. ट्रेनीज को इसकी इंफॉर्मेशन इसके बारे में बताना बहुत जरूरी है. Whether their training session reports, their performance reports in the training session, whether they are going to be used for their performance appraisal later on, whether they are going to be used for decision of salaries, whether they are going to be used for decision of promotion, that should be communicated to them. If they do not know, for example, अगर उनकी training session में performance की report को आप promotion के लिए use कर रहे हैं और आपने अपने एम्प्लॉय को ये नहीं बताया कि उनकी परफॉर्मेंस की रिपोर्ट, ट्रेनिंग की परफॉर्मेंस की रिपोर्ट इसके लिए इस्तेमाल की जा रही है, दे कैन टेक लीगल एक्शन अगेंस्ट दिस इंसिडेंट्स दैट दे वर नॉट अवेयर दैट देयर परफॉर्मेंस इन द ट्रेनिंग सेशन इज गोइंग टू बी यूज्ड फॉर प्रमोशन और फॉर इंक्रीज इन सैलरी. सो बिकॉज दे डिड नॉट नो दैट दे कैन गो टू कोर्ट, दे कैन गो फॉर लीगल एक्शन. That they were not provided enough information, complete information about that. So the organization must be careful about confidentiality and defamation problems. Then another problem which can lead to legal action is reproducing and using copyrighted material in training sessions without permission. So you know कि training sessions में बहुत सा material use होता है, books use हो सकती हैं, handouts use हो सकते हैं, videos हो सकती हैं, केस स्टडीज हो सकती हैं. सो you know that all these things they may have a copyright on them, and if the organization does not acquire permission for using such kind of material in their training sessions, it may lead to legal action. Another situation which can lead to legal action is excluding women, minority, and older people from the training session. So that is also a possibility. अभी हमने इसके बारे में बात की थी कि there are many developed countries which have proper legal systems to safeguard people from this kind of discrimination. Even if that is not there, even if there is not a system over there, generally all over the world it is possible to take things to legal action if there is a discrimination on any kind of such dimension. So everybody is has the equal human rights, and people cannot be discriminated on the basis of their ethnicity, their gender and age. So it is applicable all over the world. So organizations must be careful that the training activities and training opportunities, they are provided to everyone with an equal opportunity. Another possibility that could lead to legal action is requiring employees to attend training programs they may find offensive. So अगर उनको ये लगे कि ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम की जो एक्टिविटी है वो ऑफेंसिव है, वो ऑब्जेक्शनेबल है, उसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम है, तो दे कैन गो फॉर लीगल एक्शन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप एक इस्लामिक सोसाइटी में ट्रस्ट फॉल्स करवाते हैं और आप मिक्स जेंडर के लोगों को उसमें ट्रेनिंग के लिए उसमें उस सेशन में इन्वॉल्व करते हैं, तो मिक्स जेंडर के ट्रस्ट फॉल आपको पता है कि क्या होता है कि वन पर्सन हैज टू ब्लाइंडली फॉल and the other person has to catch that person, and there is a element of trust in that if I fall the other person will catch me. तो अगर आप mixed gender लोगों को इसमें involve कर लें और that is an Islamic society in which mixing up of genders to that extent, physical touch is not permitted by the religion, ऐसी situation में people will find it very offensive if you ask people to participate in such kind of an activity. So this is a situation which could be offensive for people from such kind of a society. So you have to make sure that the exercises that you do, they are not offensive, they are not stressful, they do not create a physical or psychological stress on people beyond certain limits. And if it is going to happen, you need to inform them and take consent for that. Then another possibility is revealing discriminatory information during a training session. So if in a training session, for example, वही बात कर लेते हैं कि performance appraisals के बारे में आप ट्रेनिंग करवा रहे हैं कि कैसे प्रिपेयर की जाती हैं, और आप ट्रेनीज की performance appraisals उन्हीं की अप्रेजल्स को इस्तेमाल करते हैं एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे, तो ये एक डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी एक्ट हो जाएगा कि उसमें से कुछ लोगों की अच्छी होगी, कुछ लोगों की वीक होगी, कुछ लोगों की फेयर होगी, तो आप उनको एक दूसरे को उनकी परफॉर्मेंस अप्रेजल्स दिखा रहे हैं और उसके ऊपर कमेंट कर रहे हैं, और फिर ये एक डिस्क्रिमिनेटरी सिचुएशन बन जाती है कि जिसमें लोग जो हैं वो उनकी परफॉर्मेंस एक दूसरे से शेयर की जा रही है. सो अगर इसके बारे में आप उनसे पहले कंसेंट नहीं लेंगे, अगर उनको इन्फॉर्म नहीं करेंगे, तो दैट कुड लीड टू लीगल एक्शन. Another possibility of legal action is that incorrectly reporting training as an expense or failing to report training reimbursement as income. So these are accounting practices. You have to accurately report training expense in the right category and to report training reimbursement as an income in the right category of the person. So if that is not reported accurately according to accounting rules and practices, then that could lead to some kind of legal action. So these are some of the possible situations which could lead to legal action, and organizations, they should be careful and they should try to avoid such situations in which such a situation may occur which would lead to legal action. because when some such kind of situation occurs, this may lead to huge amount of losses in the form of damages that the organization may have to pay, as I just gave you the example of Coca-Cola. The next special issue that we are going to discuss is cross-cultural preparation. We know that today's organizations are forced to compete globally. They are forced to expand globally and compete globally. So many organizations, when they grow, they have to spread over the world. And when organizations, they spread over the world in various countries, it leads to understanding the culture of those countries as well. You have to understand the cultures of those countries in order to make your product or service acceptable. You also have to understand the culture of those countries so that you can operate successfully in those countries from the perspective of your human resources. Because people from your organization, people from the parent country, will definitely be going to those countries for management and administration. You will not be hiring all the staff from the host country. You will need people to interact. You will need people from your parent country, from your organizational members, from your parent country to go and interact with people from the host country. So that means that there is a need for cross-cultural preparation. Cross-cultural preparation that is just not limited to the employees. Cross-cultural preparation should also include the families of the employees as well. So, cross-cultural preparation involves educating employees, expatriates, and their families who are to be sent to the foreign country. Expatriates, are people who work in countries which are different from their country of origin. So if an organization is sending employees from its parent country, from their country of origin, they are sending them to another country, they should give them some cross-cultural preparation to them as well as to their employees. So the global companies, they have 3 types of employees in them. The first type are parent country nationals. These are employees whose country of origin is where the company has its headquarters. So if a company has its origin in USA, for example, McDonald's, its country of origin is USA, an employee that is American would be a parent country national. Another type of employees are host country nationals. These are employees from the host country. The same example, if McDonald's open a branch in Pakistan and a Pakistani is employed in McDonald's restaurant, then that is a host country national. And another type of employees are third country nationals. These are employees who have a country of origin different from both the parent country and host country where he or she works. For example, if McDonald's has a restaurant in United Kingdom and a Pakistani is working in that restaurant, that is a third country national. A Pakistani who is working in United Kingdom in an American restaurant. So that is a third country national. So these are the 3 types of employees as far as their countries of origin that are concerned. When people from one country or from one culture, they go and work in another country which has a different culture, there are some shocks to take. So, for example, if a Japanese manager goes to work in America, there are going to be two kinds of shocks. दो तरह के झटके लगेंगे. एक झटका जापानीज को लगेगा, एक शॉक जापानीज को लगेगा, और एक झटका अमेरिकन को लगेगा, एक शॉक अमेरिकन को लगेगा. क्योंकि अमेरिकन और जापानीज कल्चर दोनों बहुत मुख्तलिफ कल्चर्स हैं. सो जो शॉक जापानीज को लगेगा, दैट इज कॉल्ड एन इम्प्रेशन शॉक. द जापानीज परसेप्शन ऑफ अमेरिकन वेज, वो अमेरिका के कल्चर को, उनके तरीकों को, उनके आदतों को, उनकी कल्चरल डायनामिक्स को जिस तरह से वो परसीव करेंगे, दैट इज कॉल्ड एन इम्प्रेशन शॉक. एंड द अदर टाइप ऑफ शॉक, एक और शॉक भी लगेगा, वो अमेरिकन को लगेगा कि ये जो जापानीज आ गए हैं हमारे पास काम करने के लिए, ये किस तरह से बिहेव करते हैं, दे आर सो डिफरेंट. दैट इज कॉल्ड इंटेग्रेशन शॉक. कि जापानीज को अमेरिकन कल्चर में इंटेग्रेट करने के लिए उससे पहले जो उनको शॉक लगेगा, दैट इज इंटेग्रेशन शॉक. सो लेट्स टेक अ लुक कि किस तरह के शॉक्स उनको लगेंगे, both on the impression side and on the integration side. So if we look at from the perspective of community life, the Japanese will feel कि American community जो है, यहाँ पर बहुत social diversity है, यहाँ पर violence है, यहाँ पे crime है, यहाँ पर poverty और homelessness है. अब आपको भी एक शॉक लगा होगा कि अमेरिका में poverty और homelessness भी है, क्योंकि हम जब अपने इर्द गिर्द देखते हैं तो हमें ये अपने कल्चर में, अपनी सोसाइटी में बहुत ज्यादा मैग्नीट्यूड पे नजर आती है. लेकिन जापानीज को अमेरिकन के कंपैरिजन में वो उनके लिए वो शॉक ही है कि अमेरिका में भी पावर्टी है, इतनी ज्यादा पावर्टी है और होमलेसनेस है. फिर एजुकेशन प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, और उसके अलावा जापानीज को ये शॉक भी लगेगा कि अमेरिकन दे आर इग्नोरेंट ऑफ फॉरेन वेज. क्योंकि ये कहा जाता है कि जो अमेरिकन सोसाइटी है वो अपने अंदर ही रहती है, उनको बाहर के लोगों का नहीं पता होता कि बाहर के लोग किस तरह से बिहेव करते हैं, उनके क्या कल्चर्स हैं, उनकी क्या वैल्यूज हैं. दे हैव अ वेरी लो लेवल ऑफ जनरल नॉलेज, जिसको हम कहते हैं. सो इनको ये पता ही नहीं है कि ये दूसरे कल्चर के लोग भी डिफरेंट तरीके से बिहेव कर सकते हैं. सो ये दैट इज ऑल्सो गोइंग टू बी अ शॉक फॉर देम. ऑन द अदर हैंड, ऑन द डायमेंशन ऑफ कम्युनिटी लाइफ, द अमेरिकन आर गोइंग टू बी शॉक्ड बाय the characteristics of the Japanese community, कि these people are aloof, and then they have a clannish community, यानी ये इकट्ठे मिलके रहते हैं, families में रहते हैं, clans में रहते हैं, groups में रहते हैं. They are collective in nature, क्योंकि Americans बहुत independent हैं. Then they won't understand their customs, so there would be a shock of misunderstood customs, कि ये इनके क्या अजीब से different तरह के customs हैं. Then they will perceive कि इनको अभी तक रिजेंटमेंट है, देयर इज अ लिंगरिंग रिजेंटमेंट के वो आज से 50-60 साल पहले अमेरिका ने जापान के ऊपर न्यूक्लियर जो अटैक किया था, उसकी अभी तक लिंगरिंग रिजेंटमेंट इनमें मौजूद है. तो ये भी उनको अच्छा नहीं लगेगा. देन दे हैव अ सेल्फ सर्विंग कॉन्डक्ट, कि इनका जो कॉन्डक्ट है, इनका जो बिहेवियर है, दैट इज सेल्फ सर्विंग, विच मीन्स दैट they are concerned about themselves. Now, if we look at business practices, difference in business practices of America and Japan, तो Japanese को American community में जो problems नजर आएंगे वो ये कि their operations are organized in a very different manner. Then these people are short-sighted, बहुत इनके जो decisions होते हैं वो short-term decisions होते हैं, longer term को ये नहीं देखते. Lackluster service, the service is always very basic. They believe in taking away all the formalities. So the service, it's lackluster. Then there is hasty deal making. जो negotiation है, dealing है, that is very hasty. उसमें they are very quick in doing that. They don't stop and think over it. वो decision making में time नहीं लेते. They are hasty in making the deals. Then Japanese will be shocked to see that these are legal minefields because उनके बहुत सारी practices में बहुत loopholes होते हैं जिसके अंदर बहुत सारे legal actions जो हैं वो किए जा सकते हैं. और फिर अमेरिका में culture भी बहुत ज़्यादा है कि कोई छोटी सी बात होती है तो लोग कोर्ट में चले जाते हैं, सू कर देते हैं. तो they will see that the business practice in America is like a legal minefield कि हर वक्त यहाँ पर लीगल केसेस के बॉम्ब्स जो है वो फटते रहते हैं. सो दैट इज अ शॉक दैट विल बी देयर फॉर द जापानीज पीपल. ऑन द अदर हैंड फॉर अमेरिकन्स द शॉक ऑफ जापानीज कल्चर वुड बी दैट देयर इज वेगनेस एंड डिले. ये लोग बहुत आराम से काम करते हैं और बहुत वेग रहते हैं, बहुत दे डोंट टॉक वेरी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्डली. देन एम्प्लॉयज आर ओवरवर्क्ड, वो काम ज्यादा लेते हैं एम्प्लॉयज से, दे आर मोर डिमांडिंग. देन देर आर अनफेयर इंडस्ट्रियल ग्रुप्स बिकॉज जापानीज कम्युनिटी जो है दैट इज मोर ऑफ अ कलेक्टिव नेचर. तो वहां पर फिर ग्रुपिंग भी हो जाती है और फिर पॉलिटिक्स होती है और फिर उसमें अनफेयरनेस भी डेवलप हो जाती है. Then they think that there would be ethical violations because again Japanese community is more of a collective nature और उसमें फिर वो फेवरेटिज्म हो जाता है और लोगों को कुछ को अनड्यू फेवर्स मिल जाती हैं, कुछ का हक मारा जाता है. सो they would consider that these are ethical violations. And then influence peddling, that these people they try to create influence by grouping up, by creating undue influences which are they would consider to be unfair, they would consider to be unjustified. But that is their culture and American culture is a very straightforward culture. Then in terms of organizational dynamics, the Japanese will have a shock that there is no spiritual quality. कि जो अमेरिकन कल्चर है उसमें स्पिरिचुअलिटी को नहीं इनकॉर्पोरेट किया जाता ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के अंदर. इट इज वेरी प्रैक्टिकल, देयर इज नो स्पिरिचुअलिटी इन दैट. Then there is individual careerism. Everybody is concerned about its own individual career or forwarding is his or her own interests. So everybody is individual and independent in their careers. Then there is a narrow job focus. People are given very narrowed down job responsibilities, whereas in Japanese culture, people are given broader responsibilities. Then there is political confrontation. In Japanese culture, people try to refrain from confrontation. वो एक दूसरे के साथ लड़ते नहीं हैं, वो एक दूसरे के साथ violence का इजहार नहीं करते. They are much more peaceful in terms of social dynamics. So they are more subtle, they are quieter, whereas Americans, they are a lot more expressive, and then when they express, sometimes it leads to confrontations as well. So the Japanese will be shocked by this kind of political confrontations. And then they would be shocked by employee disloyalty because every person is concerned about his own self. So employee is not that committed to the organization. If he thinks that he would have more benefit, he would have a better career in some other organization, if he gets a better opportunity, he quits the organization and there is no guilt in that. Whereas in Japan, the employee stays very loyal to the organization. It's just like a family. It's like a clan. It's the employee remains loyal to the organization. It's not very easy to quit the organization just like that. So the Japanese would be shocked by this kind of an attitude that employees, they are so disloyal to the organization that whenever they want, they just quit. So on the other hand, Americans will have a shock on the organizational dynamics dimension, that when they see Japanese conduct, they will feel that management is inexperienced. They will also feel that they avoid accountability. Another thing is that there are closed inner circles because they are clannish community. There are inner circles in the organization. Then stifled employees because they do not express their feelings. So उनको लगेगा कि वो अपने अंदर अपनी emotions को bottled up रखते हैं, वो उनको express नहीं करते, तो उनको लगेगा कि इनका तो सांस बंद हो जाना चाहिए क्योंकि ये तो बात को express ही नहीं करते. And then discriminatory practices because again there are clannish community, collective culture है, तो उसमें वो unfairness के और injustice के थोड़े से chances बढ़ जाते हैं. So there are discriminatory practices in there. So these are the shocks they will get on organizational dynamics from both sides. Then in interpersonal dealings, the Japanese will be shocked by American interpersonal dealing in their characteristics of assertiveness. कि ये लोग इतने assertive हैं, ये बात को इतनी assertiveness से कर देते हैं, इतने straight forwardly कर देते हैं. इतनी assertiveness Japanese culture में allowed नहीं है. Then frankness, कि ये एक दूसरे से इतना frank भी हो जाते हैं, ये एक दूसरे से इस तरह की बातें भी कर लेते हैं. That is also not a part of Japanese community. Then egoism, people are egoistic, they do not bend, they do not bow, whereas you see that Japanese, they are not egoistic, वो हर एक के सामने झुक के बात करते हैं, वो उनके अंदर आजिज़ी ज़्यादा है, humility ज़्यादा है, they are not so egoistic. Then glibness and impulsiveness, people are so impulsive, they buy things on impulse, they make deals on impulsiveness, they make relationships on impulse, they do not sit down and think कि इसके क्या आगे उसके क्या नताइज क्या होंगे. So this is the characteristics of American community which will be a shock to the Japanese manager. Then on the other side, the Americans will be shocked by Japanese culture of distrust और secrecy, कि ये एक दूसरे के ऊपर ट्रस्ट नहीं करते और इसलिए बातें बहुत सीक्रेट अपने अंदर महदूद रखते हैं. Then arrogance and hubris, उनको लगेगा कि ये arrogant है, हालांकि वो arrogant नहीं होते, they are quiet, they do not express, they don't get frank. So this is not arrogant on from their side, but the Americans will feel that they are arrogant, they do not express and get frank very easily. Then they will feel that they withhold their sentiments, again they are not expressive. Then there is cautious intimacy, they do not make relationships very easily, they do not trust other people very easily, they do not form bonds very easily. So there is cautious intimacy, they do not get intimate with other people and they are very cautious about that. And then they would feel that the Japanese are excessively sensitive, they feel things too much, because Americans, they are a lot more independent and they are more robust in in their emotional dealings. So emotionally वो बड़े strong होते हैं, उनके जिंदगी में बहुत सारे emotional इस तरह के events होते हैं जो कि उनको emotionally बहुत strong बना देते हैं और emotionally उनको aloof बना देते हैं. Whereas उनको ये लगेगा कि Japanese जो हैं ये इतनी emotionalities में पड़े रहते हैं, ये emotionally इतने sensitive हैं. So these are the differences on the basis of which the Japanese manager will have some shocks about American culture and the American people will have some shocks about the Japanese manager. So when there are differences in cultures, what the organizations need to do is to prepare their employees for these shocks. So before you can prepare a person for this such kind of difference, you first need to understand on what dimensions that difference can be looked at. So before that, if you want to see the dimensions on which there is difference, you first need to define what the concept is. So we will first have to define what is a culture in order to see the differences and then to make them learn the differences. So the definition of culture is that a culture is a set of assumptions that group members share about the world and how it works and the ideals worth striving for. तो इसमें दो dimensions हैं. एक तो ये कि the assumptions about the world that people share. Assumptions about the world, for example, हम ये कहते हैं कि दुनिया फ़ानी है और हमें एक मौत के बाद दोबारा ज़िंदगी भी है और we believe in the day of judgment. Hindus, they believe in 7 reincarnations of life. Existentials, they believe कि यही है दुनिया, इसी में जो करना है कर लें, इसके बाद ये सब ख़त्म हो जाना है. So it is the assumption कि दुनिया है क्या, दुनिया के why do we exist, हमारा purpose of living क्या है, हमें क्या करना चाहिए, और the assumptions about the world. एक तो ये चीज ये कि जो आप शेयर करते हैं अपने ग्रुप मेंबर्स के साथ, फिर ये कि दुनिया काम कैसे करती है, दुनिया में काम कैसे किए जाते हैं, व्हाट डू वी नीड टू डू, हमें इबादत करनी है या हमें एम्बिशन शो करनी है, हमें पैसा कमाना है, आर वी कंसर्न्ड अबाउट मटीरियल थिंग्स और आर वी कंसर्न्ड अबाउट क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ, एंड देन what things are do we consider worth striving for, हम किस चीज के पीछे मेहनत करना चाहते हैं, what are the things that must be valued in life, priorities क्या हैं आपकी. So whether we value quality of life, हम family को ज़्यादा preference देते हैं या हम अपने काम को ज़्यादा preference देते हैं, हम ऑनेस्टी को प्रेफरेंस देते हैं या हम अचीवमेंट को प्रेफरेंस देते हैं, हम सच्चाई को प्रेफरेंस देते हैं या हम एंड्स को प्रेफरेंस देते हैं, हम मीन्स को प्रेफरेंस देते हैं या हम एंड्स को प्रेफरेंस देते हैं, वो क्या चीज है विच इज वर्थ स्ट्राइविंग फॉर. सो द वैल्यूज दैट वी शेयर टुगेदर एंड वी शेयर टुगेदर टू डिसाइड टू सेट द प्रायोरिटीज ऑफ लाइफ that define the culture of a particular family, of a society, of a country, of a particular race. So these are the common values on which people agree upon. अच्छा, जब हम इस तरह से कल्चर को डिफाइन करते हैं तो फिर what are the dimensions on which we can differentiate the culture on, वो कौन सी values हैं, वो कौन से shared beliefs हैं जिनके ऊपर हम लोगों को differentiate कर सकते हैं. There could be a number of differences in values. Hofstede has given a framework of understanding the cultures of various countries. आपने डेफिनेटली पढ़ा होगा हॉफस्टेड का फ्रेमवर्क. कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि अब ऑब्सलीट हो चुका है. देयर आर मोर ओपोनेंट्स टू दिस फ्रेमवर्क देन देयर आर फॉलोअर्स, बट इट इज some people say that it is still very valid, but it is a good starting point. Even if you do not want to employ it as an entire framework, as a complete framework, it is a good starting point to start understanding the culture. So that is why I would introduce you to and use it as a reference to try to understand the cultures of various countries. So according to Hofstede, there are 5 dimensions of a culture: individualism, collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, masculinity, femininity, power distance, and time orientation. I think you would know these dimensions, but just to refresh your memory, individualism, collectivism means that how much in an individualistic culture people are concerned about their own performance, their own rewards, their own decisions. People are individualistic, they are independent. Whereas in collectivist societies, things are done in a collective manner, decisions are taken in a collective manner. For example, let's just take an example of finding a match for a person. In an individualistic society, a person would decide for himself or herself who they want to live their life with, who they want to marry. Whereas in a collectivistic society, the decision that who a person gets married to, that is going to be taken by the family, by the relatives, and everybody would like to contribute to that decision. और जब तक आप लोगों की राय नहीं लेंगे उनसे, जब तक आप उनकी एडवाइस सीख नहीं करेंगे, तो they will feel annoyed. So the whole family, the entire clan will suggest who a person should be spending his life with. So that is a difference, that is a way to differentiate between an individualistic society and a collectivist society. Then another dimension is uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance, from its wordings, it is very clear that people want to avoid uncertainty. So people don't want to take risk, and they need structures to give them some kind of certainty. So laws or religion or rules are there to give them that certainty. They cannot handle unstructured situations. They cannot handle risk. So people from a culture who want to avoid uncertainty, they will not take risks very, very easily. Whereas people from a culture who can handle uncertainty, they will be risk takers. Another dimension is masculinity, femininity. In a culture, whether the values of masculinity are preferred or the values of femininity are preferred. कुछ कल्चर जो होते हैं वो ज़्यादा मैस्कुलिन होते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल वहाँ पर फ्रैंकनेस, असर्टिवनेस, करेजियसनेस, इन चीज़ों को ज़्यादा प्रेफर किया जाता है. कुछ कल्चर्स में फेमिनिन वैल्यूज ज़्यादा प्रोमिनेंट होती हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल दे आर केयरिंग फॉर ईच अदर, दे वैल्यू क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ, दे आर नर्चरिंग फॉर ईच अदर. वो एक दूसरे को हेल्प करते हैं, सपोर्ट करते हैं, एक दूसरे से प्यार करते हैं. तो दैट दीज आर feminine values. So feminine values are more prominent in the culture, or masculine values are more prominent in the culture. That is also a differentiating factor. And the final dimension is time orientation. Whether people are concerned about the future or they are concerned about the past and the present. When people will be concerned about the future, उनकी time orientation जो है वो future orientation होगी. They will be more concerned about what happens in the future, so they will be more concerned about saving, about investing in particular things, and in making their future secure. And whereas people who have a time orientation of past and the present, they will be more concerned about living in the present, about increasing their happiness in the present. So they will be spending more today than saving for tomorrow. So they have a time orientation which is focused on today and the past. So these are the dimensions on which various countries, they differ. And you can find it very easily. There has been a number of analyses conducted on various countries' cultures, and you can find the answer. It is also available in various management and organizational behavior books, that how do various different countries, they rate on these 5 values. So you can find that information very easily, that what kind of rating does USA have, or UK has, or Pakistan has, or China, or whatever country. I think most of the countries, they have been evaluated on these 5 dimensions of Hofstede's framework. Now, in order to be a successful overseas expatriate, in order to complete overseas assignment successfully, there must be some characteristics of the expatriate to be successful in that assignment. So before we send a person or prepare a person for an expatriate assignment in another country, we should somehow try to analyze whether that person will have these characteristics or not. So the first characteristic that person has, that is that he is competent in their area of expertise. That is very important. और ये तो पता लगाना कोई मुश्किल काम नहीं है. His performance ratings, his performance reports, they will show very easily that whether he is competent in his area of expertise or not. Then he is able to communicate verbally and non-verbally in the host country. So for that, it is important that he knows the language of the host country, and he can communicate effectively verbally as well as non-verbally. So usko unke non-verbal gestures और बॉडी लैंग्वेज वगैरह की बात भी पता है, और उसको वर्बल यानी उसकी लैंग्वेज जो है उसकी बारे में भी फेमिलियरिटी है, और ही इज सफिशिएंटली कॉम्पिटेंट इन द होस्ट कंट्रीज लैंग्वेज. Then he is flexible, because obviously he will need to work in a different environment. Unless he is not flexible, he will not be able to be successful. Then he should be tolerant of ambiguity. That is a very important characteristic which is required for a person who has to work in another culture, in another place, because there may be many situations which are not structured. There may be situations for which he does not know, for which he does not have enough information. So he must be tolerant for ambiguity. He must be tolerant for unpredictable things happening around him. Then he should be outgoing and agreeable. A person who doesn't talk a lot, who's shy, who doesn't interact with other people will not be suitable for such an assignment. So he should be outgoing and agreeable in the manner that when he talks to people, people don't get offended. So he should have an agreeable personality. And then he is sensitive to other cultures. अगर एक बंदा जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा उसके जहन में stereotypes हैं और उसके जहन में बहुत रिपल्शन है कुछ दूसरे कल्चर्स के बारे में या किसी रिलीजन के बारे में या किसी रेस के बारे में, if he is repulsive towards them, then such a person will not be successful in a foreign assignment for whose culture he has some kind of repulsion in him. So he should be sensitive to other cultural differences. Then this person is motivated to succeed. It is very important for a person that he must have the urge and ambition to be successful, because in a foreign country, he would need a higher level of motivation to get things done, because it would be a difficult job as compared to the job he is holding in his own country. So, बहुत सारे challenges होंगे. So, he must have some motivation to succeed. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि उसका motivation level जो है वो बहुत down हो जाए और वो कहे कि मेरे से काम नहीं हो रहा, मैं यहाँ से जा रहा हूँ. Then he should be able to enjoy the challenge of working in other countries. So he must be fond of traveling. He must be fond of learning about new cultures. He must be fond of trying out new things, trying new cuisines, learning about various different dynamics of other cultures. So he must have some passion about it, some enthusiasm about it, and he should enjoy the challenge rather than get boggled down with the challenge. He should be somebody who should enjoy that challenge. Then he should be willing to learn about host country's culture, language, and customs. So as I just said, he should be enthusiastic about learning all these things. And finally, last but not least, he should be supported by his family. So if he will not have the support of his family, if his family will not be willing to go with him, or will not be willing to let him go alone if he is required to do that, if the family is not happy with the situation, if the family is not happy with the arrangement, that is going to lead to a lot of problems, and a person who has difficulty in satisfying and keeping his family happy will not be able to successfully complete his assignment in the foreign country. So these are the various characteristics of a person who can be a successful expatriate, who can be sent on a foreign assignment. We will be continuing our discussion on cross-cultural preparation. In the next session, we will talk about the 3 phases of cross-cultural preparation, that are pre-departure phase, on-site phase, and repatriation phase, and the kind of training activities that should be carried out in these 3 kind of phases. So we will continue the session in the next lecture. Until next time, Allah Hafiz.